Hello and welcome to Fly With Your Shadow, the podcast all about music, mental health and illness, and the mess that the COVID pandemic has made of it all. I'm Jeff Robson, and this show comes to you from my home in Winnipeg, Manitoba. We're headed back to Alberta again this week for a chat with another of my favorite songwriters and people. This guy has crossed Canada delivering joy more times than Santa Claus, and he has a lengthy resume of incredible songs and unbelievable stories to share.
My name is Mike Plume, and I am a singer-songwriter, ne'er-do-well.
Mike Plume is one of the most glaring examples of the unfair nature of the music industry. You'd like to believe that if you have immense talent and appeal and work really, really hard, you'd be able to become a major star. But it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes an artist just grinds away, developing a rabid following outside of the mainstream, but never quite reaching that level of fame. Don't get me wrong, Mike has been successful. He's known and loved by many. But for my money, he has written some of the best songs and put out some of the best albums this country has ever produced. For years, he led one of the best live bands on the planet, and they were willing to play anywhere and everywhere, and they did. Mike, along with his oldest friend and drummer, Ernie Basiliadas, along with guitar slinger phenom Dave Klym, and a couple of bass players, most notably Derek Mazurek, were and still are known as Mike Plume Band. In their most active years, from 1997 to 2002, they were fixtures in bars, theaters, and at festivals across Canada. They toured the U.S. and across Europe, performing up to 250 shows in a year. Their shows and albums at the time, I believe, stand right alongside some of the biggest bands in Canada like Blue Rodeo and the Tragically Hip. But Mike never got the big-scale audiences or the acclaim that Jim Cuddy, Greg Keeler, and Gord Downie did. He ran into just about every roadblock you can imagine. He had terrible management, deals that never really got panned out. He got ripped off. He had opportunities that through no fault of his own didn't work out. The band recorded an album called Fools for the Radio. It should have catapulted them into the upper echelon of Canadian bands, but it had the unfortunate circumstance of being released on September 11th, 2001. And there are countless incredible stories, many of which you can read, and you should read, at Mike's website, mikeplume.com. I hear he's even got a book coming. Eventually, he cut back on the touring. He married the love of his life, another super talented singer-songwriter named Jenny Orenstein, and kind of settled down into a quieter life. They have a wonderful daughter named Ruby, who's blossoming into a major musical talent. Watch out for her, trust me. But the songs keep coming, the stories keep getting written, and the stage keeps calling, and Mike keeps churning out powerful recordings. His latest album, Lonesome Stretch of Highway, again had the unfortunate circumstance of being released right at the beginning of a global pandemic. He took a day job to help pay the bills while he couldn't tour, and the interview and training process helped him to realize and face that he'd been living with an undiagnosed learning disability since grade 5. Never one to just sit around, Mike became one of the bright lights of online streaming shows over the past year and a half. He did some of the best live broadcasts once or twice a week for nearly a year. Needless to say, Mike and I had a lot to talk about, and we always do. I know you'll enjoy this funny, touching conversation with Mike Plume.
I swear I can't get no relief and staring it down. Sometimes you're impossible to believe here.
Now, Mike, hopefully, I've said dumb things to you before and you've forgiven me. So hopefully you won't take this the wrong way.
Of course, how could I?
And I gotta put the positive first. I think you've had an amazing career, and hopefully you agree with me that you've been blessed with some success and people liking your music and getting to play music all over the place. But to me, you've always been the best example of how completely unfair the music industry is, because for my money, one of the best songwriters out there, definitely one of the best storytellers and showmen out there, and for some reason, you're still not not as big as you are in my heart, I suppose. You're still not filling the big rooms and stuff.
It used to bend. I used to get way more bent out of shape about that kind of stuff than I do now. I just try not to worry about it, man. You know, excuses are for losers, and those who are good at excuses are very good at little else. So I'm just not.
But the thing is, I just feel like none of it is your fault. Like you've had some crazy, crazy, crazy things that have happened to you over the course of your career that would have stopped any mere mortal dead in their tracks. Like some of the weird things that have happened to you, the kind of the weird setbacks and obstacles. I mean, releasing albums on 9/11 and then on the eve of a friggin' pandemic. And like you just seem to have this bad luck following you around, but somehow I just, and I guess partly it's just a compliment, but I'm so glad that you're still out there doing it, because I know that I would have quit so long ago.
Man, I appreciate that, Jeff. And I there's probably not, a dozen times a day where I don't ponder walking away. When it's like, yeah, how much is it for a fucking latte? Oh man, you start questioning every career decision you've made.
The guy who started playing music, like if he had heard your story, when he was starting out, first of all, do you think he would have been pleased with how much you've been able to accomplish? Do you think he would have been happy with this life in music, or do you think he would have quit and gone and done something else?
Yeah, and I don't know. Did I think I would be like, achieving like Motley Crue status by now? Yes. Because they girls. Oh man, that was my North Star. I am telling you right now, that was my Theater of Pain was my North Star. So in my head, I just figured everybody would play you play stadiums. Everybody does. That's just what happens. But I have managed to just sort of plod along. I went out for dinner the last time I played Saskatoon, which was now over, about 2.5 years ago. But I went with a buddy of mine who I was the singer in his band, and he fired me back in 1987. And he said, I don't know what the hell, how you haven't quit by now. He goes, he goes, I don't know. He goes, basically kind of what you just said, like anybody else would have said, to hell with this, I'm going to do something else. And I was talking with a friend of mine today about that very thing. I said, he goes, did it bother you when you were fired from all those bands? I said, no, it just never even caused me a second of like self-doubt. I just just keep moving forward. I remember once reading and there was an interview with I think it was REM, and they were talking about when they would sit down to write an album, and they said we basically just sort of start talking about what we don't want to do, and whatever's left is what we should do. And that's kind of the way I just sort of learned. I just it wasn't by design, but I can look back and see that pretty much anything that, I figured out what it was that I couldn't do, and whatever was left, I was okay at. But sadly, I had to learn what I couldn't do in front of a paying audience, Well, Jesus, I guess I shouldn't. That's the last time I sing the Immigrant Song. But it's never bothered me. There are parts of it that bother me. And do I wish that things, have unfolded differently? Yeah. But do I think things are done unfolding? No.
Yeah, that's the thing. You still seem to have this drive to write your best song and put out your best record and do your best show. And is that the thing that keeps going you, or is it just such a habit by now that you what is it that keeps you putting up with the shit and like, sinking money into this thing.
Oh yeah, well, don't even talk to me about that. Yeah. Yeah, my accountant said that I wasn't losing money quick enough last year, so I said, "Hey, I got an idea. I'm going to dump about 35 grand into merchandise at the peak of a pandemic, so I can't recoup it."
Solid business practices.
That's it, man. It's I don't know, man. I was listening to we were listening to again, a friend of mine was over today. We were having a cup of coffee and we were listening to John Hammond Jr.'s Tom Waits album,
The Wicked Grin. Yeah, I love that record.
And oh my God, and we're just marveling at it, and marveling at the performance in John Hammond, but just marveling at the songwriting of Tom Waits. Was that a raindrop or a tear in your eye where you're drying your nails or just waving goodbye? And I can't quit until I write a line that good. You know what I mean? And so that stuff still excites me. Thank God, because there really is. There's a million reasons why you should quit, right? But like that kind of stuff excites me. Like when I read like I don't know, like just a sentence by Larry McMurtry, I just marvel. Like, oh my God, that is how does somebody write something that perfect? And so to say that I am actively chasing that would be an understatement. But I am not remotely disenchanted. Maybe I'm just like this. I don't know. Like, I mean, maybe I should, but I'm just not.
I mean, I hear about people quitting all the time and just going, you know what, I've had enough, or they just, kind of shuffle off and do their summer holiday tour or whatever it is. And I never blame them one bit. I don't know how you people put up with what you put up with. And if you were to quit today, I think you would have achieved a lot. Like there are a lot of, whether you choose to believe it or not, there are a lot of people who love your songs and love you and you've had an effect on people's lives. I think you've had a great career. And I think it means something, all that you've done, but you're still out there doing it and you still are getting better at it. Like you're still finding new ways to make it interesting. And I don't know, I just think that's to your credit. And again, it just kind of amazes me because I know that I would have quit. I would have quit long ago.
Right. Yeah. Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I don't know if we talked about this, but like a couple of years ago, I found out that I was dyslexic, and so I never knew why I was a moron in school, but I just figured I was just a straight up, just like, and I'm not even trying to like, I guess I'm trying to be funny, but I'm not really trying to be funny either. It's like I never had plan B. There was nothing else I could do. And I know people say, oh, if I wasn't doing music, I'd be in jail. And that's kind of the line that, I'm sure my North Star Motley Crue would have said back in the day. But, and I don't think I would have ended up in jail, but there was nothing else I could do. Like, I just remember like in April or May of my grade 12 year, and everybody was planning where they're going to go to school. And I just thought, I haven't had a mark over 51 this year. I'm not going to be going to any school, and it just wasn't, and I just assumed I would get a gig playing guitar for some band. And I did. I got a gig like 2 weeks out of high school. There was a band that was rolling through Bonneville, and I auditioned, got the gig, and, got fired, but I got the gig.
But even that was kind of wasn't hockey your original plan? Like if you'd had your way,
Yeah.
You would have been a hockey player, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That was probably yeah. That was plan A for sure, was to be a hockey player. And you know what? I wasn't a bad hockey player. But probably no better, maybe a little better than the average hockey player, but certainly not. I don't know who would have been coming into the NHL at my age, but Theo Fleury would have been in that same age group. But I was not, I was a good hockey player. But I'll tell you what happened. I wrenched my knee, and And it wasn't like a career-ending knee injury, but I became gun shy. I turned into a chicken shit. I wouldn't go into the corners anymore, and it changed the way I played hockey. And so did my position on the team. I went from being starting line to we'll call you, because I didn't like I was scared to hurt my knee again, and I never had to have surgery or anything, but it had a mental impact. Now when I play hockey, it doesn't even cross my mind that I wrenched my knee. I just don't even care anymore. You sort of forget about it. But it took my next 2 years of hockey after I wrenched my knee. There was a committee going on upstairs every time I stepped on the ice.
And sports psychology wasn't a big thing at the time. You couldn't just go and get that
That's
fixed,
right.
eh?
You're absolutely right. But I didn't, because I didn't pick up the guitar till I was almost 17.
Really?
Yeah.
Like never touched it?
Never touched it.
So what made you do that, and why? Like, was it love at first strum, or?
Yeah, it certainly was. Its first squeak. Just the way, just dragging my fingers across the strings and hearing that squeak as you slide your fingers back and forth across the strings. Yeah, it really was. And it was my mom's 40th birthday, so it would have been March 18th, or the Saturday closest to March 18th, 1985. And so we were in New Brunswick. It was our last March in New Brunswick before we moved to Bonnyville, Alberta. And she had a birthday party. It was her 40th birthday party, so she had 40th birthday, so she had a bunch of pals from school and stuff over, and somebody brought a guitar. And then the next morning, on Sunday morning, I got up, and it was like kind of like the first day of spring break, March break, and everybody had gone home, but whoever brought the guitar forgot the guitar there, probably left it in a drunken stupor. And it sat there in its case all day Sunday, and then on Monday, which was the first official day of March break, I guess, I was bored to tears, and I wasn't playing hockey that year because my knee was botched, and so I said, screw it, and I cracked open the case, and there it was a Washburn guitar, and inside the case with the guitar was a Beatles songbook with the pictures of the chords, and I thought, well, what the hell? I'll just see if I can learn how to play "She Loves You." And I went crazy. And within a couple of weeks, I had pictures of Eddie Van Halen on my wall and Randy Rhoads, and that was it. I was off and running. And that was in March of 1985. And by August of 1985, we moved to Bonnyville, and that's when I met Ernie. And I had started to reinvent myself at that point. When I got to Bonnyville, I had started to reinvent myself as a guitar player.
And like, were you a big music lover before that, or what was that when you started learning about music as well?
No, point A to point B.
Really?
So yeah. I mean, I had a couple of tapes. I could tell you. I mean, my first tape was Kiss Alive, which I think everybody's was. My next tape would have been Men at Work, Business as Usual. And my next tape after that would have been Kiss, Creatures of the Night. Actually, I'm wrong. So my first tape was Kiss Alive. My second tape was Kiss Unmasked. Then it would have been Men at Work, Business as Usual. Then Kiss, Creatures of the Night. Then Men at Work's. The next album I would think was called Cargo. And then that would have been 82, 83, something like that. I think I had a Chilliwack record or cassette, I should say, or 82, 83, yeah, in around there. So like what Rod Stewart album had that song Young Turks. I liked that song a lot. Oh my God, that just hit me. Like I was Billy left us home with $1 in his pocket and his head to his feet. Yeah, man. He said somewhere life's gotta be better. I love that song. So but that back then I wasn't buying tapes. But I had those cassettes, but I was just taping the top 40, like to the point where when I hear Young Turks, I can still hear the DJ introducing the song because that was the version that was what I had taped, just so as the DJ, introducing the song. And so those would have been that would have been it. And then, so 83 Thriller, I would have had Thriller for sure. And Mellencamp's I remember that I had that tape. It's funny how that one still travels with me to this day. But I wasn't, but I was far from like a music connoisseur. And then 85 is when I got into it. And I can remember there was a couple moments like in November of 84 I would have bought Reckless. Bryan Adams' Reckless. And that was my first year of really buying cassettes on a regular basis. So I would have bought 84. I would have been 15 going on to turning 16 at 84. I bought Huey Lewis. Was that Sports? I bought that tape. Yep. I bought I think it was called Camouflage, Rod Stewart Camouflage. I bought obviously 1984. Those would have been the big ones for sure. That would have been the big stuff. And then, what else was 84? Scorpions. By that point, I was starting to get into that stuff, but I still wasn't playing the guitar or anything. So I kind of had an idea. But it's funny because like I'm using this now to sort of go, okay, this is how I go back and write my stories. I start going into my head that way. And so what was I listening to? And I'll go listen to those songs while I'm writing my stories just to get even further back into it.
At what point do you go from picking up the Beatles and wanting to play Beatles songs to wanting to write your own songs? Was that a quick thing for you? It was
very quick.
Yeah?
Very quick. Yeah, I wrote my first song before the end of that year.
Was it any good?
And you tell me.
Which one was it? Did it come out?
What do you think? No, it never did come out. Oh. No. But I'm sure it was fine for a 16-year-old kid, But I had also bought Born in the USA. That was my first Springsteen tape. I bought that in January of 85. But I remember reading a Springsteen interview in some magazine because I was not even I bought Born in the USA, but that was just because I think I liked Dancing in the Dark. But the old guy dancing in the video, like, who's this guy? I can remember thinking that, what is he doing? Because at that point he would have been 1984. He would have been 35 years old. That's ancient. Think of that. Think how ancient that guy would have seemed to like a 16-year-old. But I remember reading a Springsteen interview, and then I also remember it might have been like a Bon Jovi interview, and both of them kind of said the same thing, which is like, you can never start writing too soon. And I just, for some reason, I've never heeded any advice, but I heeded that advice. And I think I know why, because to this day, I'm still not, I could probably do a good Guy Clark cover, but there's not much else I'm very good at covering. As far as like, man, you sound just like that guy. I could probably sing the hell out of Pink Houses too if I needed to. But I wasn't very good at, like, I could sing, whatever. I could sing Johnny Be Good or whatever I needed to, or Honeymoon Suite or anything. But I don't think I was ever. I'm still not that good of a guitarist. As far as like, I couldn't play a Panama at gunpoint.
Well, that's why you need Dave Klym around.
Yeah, Davey boy. Dave and I were talking this week actually. But yeah, so I don't know. It didn't take me long to start writing. It didn't so I was 85. I started playing March of 85. By March of 86, I was writing, trying to write stuff, a lot of Moon and June stuff. And I'm still writing that. But, and then by May of 87, I had sent I'd been playing guitar for 2 years. I sent my first demo tape off to Warner Brothers in Toronto. Yep. pretty quick when you think about it.
Did you feel like those were great songs at the time? Like, were you already
Oh,
confident and feeling
absolutely.
like
Yeah,
you
I
you were
thought they
onto
were. I
something?
thought it was. Oh fuck yeah! I thought these were. There was one song that I wrote, was called "Streets of the Night," and man, this was as good as this was the long and winding road as far as I was concerned. It was that good of a song. So needless to say, confidence has never been an issue of mine. But I can remember saying to my mom that when I sent that tape off, I said, "Well, if they don't like it, these are the best songs I will ever write. There's no way I don't have a chance." I can remember saying that. I wish I could. I'd like to take that back, but I was quite confident in the songs, and you know what? They're I got a little. I still have the tapes, and I've converted them, and I'm converting. Like today, I was when you sent me when we were in touch earlier this afternoon. I said I was digging around in one of the storage lockers. I was going through a bunch of cassette tapes that I need to get transferred over. Yeah.
Are you putting together the
Yeah,
box set? Is this going to come out on the box set?
That's right.
Mike
That's
Plume,
right.
the early years?
That's it. Yeah. The first 30 years. Yeah.
But the first album comes together as Songs from a Northern Town, I guess was the first one, right?
Yeah.
Well, when
Yeah,
you
93.
are you still proud of those songs? Like do you think those songs still hold up?
Yes. Yes, I think they do. And I didn't think that for a long time.
Really?
No. I mean, yeah. More than anything, I wasn't thrilled with what happened. We went in the studio, and I was just so. There was a whole lot of "What's this button do?" when I recorded that album.
Yeah. That's a nice
Oh,
light.
I like that. Let's put that on it. So there's a lot of like if I could find those master tapes, I'd like to remix that without any of the just the reverbs and stuff. I was just too excited by the whole thing. But and because of that, the Jump Back Kerouac record, I went the other direction entirely. No reverb, no nothing, no technology. I don't want anything. I just want this to sound whatever the snare drum would sound like in this room is what it's going to sound like. I don't want it to doctor it, and so it's a very dry sounding record by comparison. And so then the third record would have been Simplify and Song and Dance Band, and by that point I started to hit my stride. But when I did earlier this year, I did those whatever the revisited series are on YouTube, and so I was brushing up on the Northern Town record, and I thought, you know what, these are better songs than I'd given them credit for. They've held up.
Nice.
And yeah, I'm very proud of those songs. Absolutely. Yeah, they're nice little stories. And I think I even said, like, in the liner notes or something, or something I wrote about that record, like, if I could go back and talk to that guy, I'd say it's a lot longer road than you think, and you're not working on a cancer cure, so fucking lighten up, but that would be the big thing. Like I've got like this, like these notes from back then, right when that record was coming out, just kind of like sort of somebody said, you need to write down your goals for the next year. I'm like, really? I said, yeah. So it's okay. So I wrote down my goals, and I'm like, oh my God, did I miss? I didn't even hit the post. I wasn't even on the ice. But it's funny because it's just, I was 23 or 24 years old, but it was like, everything was like, okay, I'm going to sell 50,000 copies of this record by the end of the year, and I'll be, playing, Jubilee auditoriums for the next year, and then I'll be on to the arenas. And I'm like, who was I? Well, it happens to some people, but I probably made a lot of mistakes as well, so. One of the big things for me was like, all I wanted to do was be a singer and songwriter and be on the road, and I didn't want to have to deal with anything else. And because of that, I may have signed over responsibilities to other people that I probably shouldn't have, and because of that, I annoy anybody who works with me now because I don't let anything out of my sight. I don't. I'm like, sorry. Yeah, sorry. It's not going to happen. So like, like I'm getting T-shirts designed by somebody, and they're like, and I'm like, hey, can we change it? And sorry, man, only three changes. Okay, how much do I owe you? Okay, here you go. Thank you. Now burn the design because I need more than three changes. I did that. I did that last year.
Just for a T-shirt.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I'm not signing off on it. I need this changed. So yeah, fuck it. I don't care anymore, man. Because it's like, if you're gonna if I'm working with you and you say, sorry, there's only three changes. No, there's as many changes as I need. And if you need to charge me for it, fine. But and so I just don't even bother. So like, no, then I'll learn to do it myself.
Okay, I want to go back to something. You said that you recently found out that you were dyslexic. What led you to that, and what was sort of? I'm really curious because I don't know nearly enough about that condition. So what? I mean, what was wrong? What? How has this been a problem in your life? And then what led to finding out?
Well, there's a couple things. So it's been a problem for me since fifth grade. And it's interesting because like I write my little stories, and you've probably read a couple of them. But I run it through this app called Grammarly. I don't know if you know that, but so I just run everything, just make sure I got punctuation and all that kind of stuff, and just to make sure. And it sort of goes through. It says you might want to say, hey, maybe change this, do that. But this comma should be here, whatever. Get rid of that comma. What's with the three dots? All that kind of stuff. But one of the things it said to me, it said that I write at a fifth grade comprehension level. And
really?
Yeah,
I've never clicked on that box. Obviously, I didn't know it was that judgmental.
Yeah, no, it's like your writing is easy to comprehend. It's at like a fifth grader could read it and understand what the hell was going on when you wound up in a ditch in Amsterdam. Nothing's too cryptic. It could so.
Well, that sounds like a plus. That's what I love about your stories, is that they're to the point.
You go.
Like
they're to the point. But what's interesting about that is that is when I started to get left behind, was in fifth grade. So I was at the top of my class until fifth grade, and then started to, bog down a bit in grade 5, grade 6, and by November of grade 7, I got hauled into the office, and they said, Mike, you're going to fail. And I couldn't believe it. Still thought I was at the top of the class. I just thought everybody was having a rough go.
So you didn't know there was something wrong?
No. And then that was it. And so I barely made it out of 7th grade, barely made it out of 8th grade, barely made it out of 9th grade, barely made it out of, actually I didn't make it out of 10th grade. I failed math in English in 10th grade, went to summer school, failed them again, went into grade 11 having to repeat English 10 and math 10, failed them again. I was dumber than a sack of hammers, and I just didn't know.
No, it's not your fault, obviously.
I didn't know, and so I just it was. I did, and so I failed math 10 3 times in a row, and then in grade 11, my English teacher during parent-teacher interview told my mom that she thought I might be illiterate, and that I should probably, and she was like, that I could probably, it might behoove me to like go to more like a, special, not special ed, but maybe it would be special ed.
You gotta become one of the sweat hogs or what?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. What was his name? Mr. C.
Cotter.
Yeah, was it C or K? Cotter. Mr. C was from Happy Days.
Yeah.
How do you spell Cotter? See, there's my
K.
dyslexia. Is that with a K or a C?
Yeah.
I don't
K.
even know. Anyway, but so my mom, who was a school teacher, was not thrilled with that little tidbit of info with my 11th grade English teacher's opinion of me. Now looking back, she might have been on the nose there. I was starting to like I just couldn't. Fuck, I didn't finish a book. I didn't finish my first book till I was probably 22, 23 years old. And that was only when I was on the road, and I would be playing like in a town for 6 nights, and I didn't have Instagram, we didn't have anything like that, so you'd just be sitting in a hotel for, you know, 20 hours a day. So I would buy a book and, you know, and read for 20 hours a day, and probably read about 5 pages an hour is what it would be. But I felt like I was a voracious reader. I was just really slow, you know. But so anyway, a couple of years ago, like I ended up taking a job, at a music store here in town, along in McQuaid, when the whole pandemic and everything really hit hard and all that kind of stuff, and there was all this kind of shit going on, and I knew I wasn't going to be doing a whole lot of touring, and so I had to take these tests, for this to work at this store, and
There's an aptitude test at Long and McQuaid?
pretty much,
Really?
yeah. Yeah, well, it's just like here you got to learn how this works, and you got to learn this, and all these different shit. And so like I remember them saying, hey, so you need to it was like in the morning. They said, okay, read this. We're gonna go for lunch, and when we come back from lunch, there's gonna be a test, and there's like 25 questions, and you got to get like 20 of them right. And I got 6, and I thought, what is my problem? I couldn't remember anything that I read, and as I was reading, I knew I wasn't retaining anything. But that's kind of the way I am, because I have to read everything a half dozen times before it sinks. Like if we were to go to a restaurant right now, like I would read the first item on the menu, the second item on the menu, third item. I wouldn't remember what the first item was. I would have to go back and read that again, and then eventually I would just say, I'll have what Jeff's having. And hope like hell you didn't order sushi. Yeah.
No problem there.
Yes, it would be fine then. But that's what it would be. It doesn't stick. I have to read everything 4 or 5. Like every page, I have to read 4 or 5 times. Because like I'll get halfway down a page and go, I don't remember anything I read. And so instead of starting at the top of the page again, I'll go back a line, back a line, back a line, back a line, and go, do I remember? And start reading. No, I don't. Next thing I've been working on this page for 10 minutes. But once I finish a page, I know every word on it, and we could be talking about that book 10 years from now. And you remember when you were reading The Stand, I read The Stand, and there was this scene. I said, oh yeah, that's page 76. Like I could tell you what I know what it was on the left page or the right side. I mean, I know it. But it takes me a long time to devour it. So anyway, I called Jenny and I said, Jenny, I don't know what the hell's going on here, but I said, I got problems, because this was the first time I'd taken a test since high school, of which I never passed anything. And so, I did a couple Google searches for like undiagnosed adults with dyslexia, and I ticked all the boxes. So we called a couple of specialists and therapists here in Edmonton, and I went for some tests, and nowadays it's just called a learning disorder. They don't even call it dyslexia anymore. That's kind of like just a catchphrase. It's just I have a learning disorder or disability, and well, a little bragging, but my IQ is on the high side of things, but my ability to process was in the 8th percentile. So like 0 percentile is dead. So 7th percentile is I'm probably working at the bottle depot. And so it was good, because it shone a light on it. It finally that explains everything. So it explains everything. It's just explain, because I can get hyper focused on something like music, and I can just be very flighty and not know what the hell is going on from time to time, or all the time. Lots of self-worth issues, all that kind of stuff. Like when I remember in ninth grade, this is crazy. When I was in ninth grade, you probably did this too. You had to take like an aptitude test.
Yeah.
So you took this fucking aptitude test, and I'll never forget this. And I can't even believe that this would be on the aptitude. So you take this test, and it comes back in a second. I remember everybody the next, we get the test back the next day or 2 days later, and everybody's like, "Man, it says I should be an architect. But man, it says
Yeah.
it said I should be a mathematician. It said I should be a doctor." And it was kind of like that episode of the Halloween episode of Charlie Brown. I got this. I got that. I got a rock. And it came back to me, and it was like mine said I should be a handbag assembler. Yeah, that was like it says like working in a factory, or working in a factory, or operating like machinery, and when it gave like an example, like a backhoe or a handbag assembler. Those are the examples it gave me. So needless to say, by the time I was at the end of ninth grade, I was done with school. There was no point. I was just done with it. I plod along, and my mom would go to parent teacher every year, and they say he's a good kid, but he's just not here. Like he doesn't cause any trouble at all. Doesn't say anything, or like my mom would say, he wouldn't say shit if he had a mouthful, and but he's just not here. Yeah. Anyway, so that's kind of it explained a lot, and it was crazy.
So is there anything you can do about it, or does this help you going forward, or is it just good to know that it's just good to not your fault? Like,
yeah, it's just good to know. Like I still read a lot, but it's just I'm very slow. Like if I read 3 pages a day, I mean that's a breakneck pace for me. So like I can remember like when Jenny was getting her master's in music therapy, she's like, "Yeah, I got to review these 4 chapters." I'm like, review? Like I wouldn't even have read those 4 chapters yet. Like I can remember that my English teacher saying, "Okay, so you need to review these chapters tonight. There'll be a test." I'm like, jokes. I haven't even read them yet, And so the only thing any correct answers I ever got in school was just what I managed to retain in class, because there's no way I would be able to read it and retain it in the amount of time that they needed me to. So it was eye-opening, and it doesn't really bother me, but now I see, oh wow, and there's just like little things, like my brother pointed it out to me, like he goes, like when you go to sign your name, you put the pen on the page, and then your hand just stays there for about 3 seconds before you actually engage in writing your name. And I'd always noticed that, but never really put 2 and 2 together. But that is my processing skills, not firing.
Really?
Yeah, it's really weird.
Huh? That's fascinating.
But, yeah, it hit me over the head. Then I just sort of start searching, sniffing around and stuff, and you're like, wow, look at this. Steven Spielberg was 65 when he found out he was dyslexic. He just thought he was a deliberate reader. No, he was slow. He said, and you're reading this. I could send you these links to his little dyslexic interview where he's like, he would read a script, and somebody would read a 90-page script in an hour and a half, and it would take him a week. And he just thought it was because he was thorough. No, it had nothing to do with that at all. He's dyslexic, and so, I just, it just, like I said, it just answered a lot of questions for me. It didn't help things by any stretch, but I understand, what's going on now to whatever extent.
Well, it's amazing. And again, to me, it says it just shows how much you've managed to accomplish, and yet you obviously haven't let it slow you down. You've done all right,
Yeah, well, I mean, I just feel like I've walked between the raindrops my entire adult life, because I never had to take a test. I mean, I was lucky. It's true. I was lucky that I found something that I was okay. Like I was actually pretty good at, like had I gone to college, man, I would have got a dean's vacation by week 2. I was lucky that I was okay enough at music, and also just so singularly focused on it that I just didn't matter. I just kept moving forward.
All right. Well, another thing that I like to talk about on this show is kind of the effect of the pandemic on music, and I'm really curious for you because once again you've sunk your heart and soul into a record that I know you're super proud of. You've been working on
Yep.
Lonesome Stretch of Highway. You think this is your best batch of songs ever, and it's all ready to go, and it's due to come out the spring of 2020, right?
Yeah, man. Oh yeah, I had a radio tour booked starting March 12th.
I'm sorry for laughing. I know it's just so hard to believe, but
It's either laugh at nothing or cry about it all, right? There it is again.
because I mean, it looks like it looks like it's kind of a bit of a like you've got record label support at the time, right? You've got a
Yep.
bit of a team behind you. Everybody's excited
Yep.
about this record. So at what point do the wheels fall off?
Oh, that's March 13th, I guess. It was just a smoldering wreck on the side of the road. You know what's crazy? Yeah, I was supposed to do this radio tour March 12th, and I believe that was the day that the NBA shut their season down. I'm like, well, shit, this is crazy. And but the record came out on May 22nd, and it got to number 3 on iTunes. I've never had that before. They just kept in the radio, and the guys over at Royalty, Rob Smith and the gang, they just kept releasing singles and said, "Screw it, we're just going to keep working it." And it's far and away the best best showing I've ever got at radio, as far as like it certainly generated a lot of interest somehow.
So how do you kind of pivot though from having this tour lined up and all these plans for that record to not having anything?
Yeah. Well, I mean, no different than anybody else. I knew that was where we were all fucked,
Were you one of those people that didn't think it was going to last very long, or did you?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't think it would be done by Easter, like maybe the president of the United States did, but I figured by summer we'd be up and out of it. I really did, and I'm not even sure we're going to be up and out of it by next summer. Truly. Yeah. Yeah, like I think I was saying earlier, I don't often wish my life away, but I'm excited to get a decade down the road, just to be able to look back on this with some sort of clarity, because it's crazy. But yeah, again, I don't worry about it.
Somehow you become, like, for me, like the king of streaming shows all of a sudden, and how did that come about? Like, because again, I sort of think of you as this guy who belongs on stage with that immediate feedback from an audience. And then you became one of my favorite live streamers. You certainly became one of the most prolific. You were going live every week for a long, long time.
Yeah, I did. I think 34 in a row. I think 34 Sundays and probably 25 Wednesdays.
So was that weird at first, or did you kind of take to that really quickly too?
I did take to that pretty quickly. I did go kicking and screaming. I didn't want to do that because I watched enough streams I mean, I felt like, oh my, like there were so many that were just awful. That's all there is. That's all I can say. I mean, they were just awful. The sound was awful. The camera angle was awful. The lighting was piss poor, and the performance and the songs were mediocre. And I'm like, I am not going to be one of those guys. So I thought, okay, if I'm doing this, people might be able to complain about say that the songs aren't up to snuff, but they're not going to complain about the sonically or the way it looks. So I said, screw it. I'm going to buy a decent camera. I'm going to get some lights. I want to buy some good mics. So at least I know that it sounds good out front. And I would do epic long sound checks. I'd be up at like 6 a.m. if like from the 9 o'clock Sunday morning shows. I would be sound checking. I would record it. Okay, how's that look? And then I'd watch it back and listen back. Okay, no, that microphone needs to be moved. That light needs to be moved because it's washing everything out. It had to be. It's the same way. It's the same as like when I do a show. Like I like knowing that I am well represented out front, and so it's quite often more than worth it to travel with a sound man if you can, so because at least I know that, the songs, and not even trying to be like a smart ass, well, maybe a bit, but it's like the songs may not be any good, but at least I know it sounds good. Do you know what I mean? And that's true though. It's like I just need to know that sonically I'm being represented properly. And whether if people don't like the show, it's because I played poorly or the songs weren't what they were looking for. As opposed to, yeah, songs were good, but man, did it sound awful. I would rather it be the opposite, So I before I started going really gangbusters on that, it had to be top. It had to be as top shelf as I could make it. I feel like I accomplished that. I put a lot of work into that.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was all worth it because like you said, I watched so many streams that were not done right. You can't just set up your phone and hope for the best. It doesn't matter how good your songs are. If it sounds and looks terrible, it's not worth watching.
Yeah. And I had a big problem when I would see it. I'm like, and you could tell it was just a mirror image of the guy. It's like, okay, well, don't wear a t-shirt with lettering on it because it's written backwards now. So at least be mindful of that. But there is and I haven't done one now since June, I guess. So
do you miss it? Like you miss being on stage?
There was more stress doing those than there was doing a live show, for sure.
Just because you were in charge of more, or what? Like it was more.
No, because I didn't know if there was a couple shows where the internet dropped out, or just things like that would happen, or I would get this message. I'd be singing and this message would come up on the screen. You couldn't see it but what I could see, it was saying running out of data, or not running out of data, but you could see like the Wi-Fi signal shrinking. I'm like, what is happening? And I want to yell at my family, get off the fucking internet.
Yeah.
Just anything like that. So that would just be going. That would be driving me crazy in the back of my mind. But I'm pondering firing it up again. We'll see. I'll probably wait until I get back from this, run out to Winnipeg here, and maybe do some stuff through November and December. I don't know. I'm in an apartment building now too, so it's like I can't be yelling at the top of my lungs without, worrying about annoying my neighbors. But I did like it.
You're also somebody like you never really asked for money during them. You didn't really push the tip jar or anything. You never had a paid stream. You did some amazing like album series shows that I gladly would have, paid admission for, and you never did that. What was that? Was it just the need to perform, or?
No, it was not the need to perform. It was the need to I would just be, if I wasn't streaming a show, I would have been sitting around playing the guitar anyway. So, but I couldn't. I just felt wrong with my hand out. I just couldn't do it. Now I did have I had a little buy Mike a coffee thing. So if somebody felt like they wanted to click and give me $5, I would never say no. But I couldn't sell tickets to that. Couldn't do it. In fact, my eyes still roll and my blood boils when I see way more better, well-known, financially secure bands than me doing that. And I'll leave it at that.
Well, but I know I understand the pride that you're talking about, but at the same time, like there are people who love you and want to support you and would gladly show you that absolutely. By buying tickets to this thing or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not charity. It's like.
No, I know, but I would rather have people watch it, and the link was there. They could click on it, and you know what? I was surprised that I did pretty good every show. You know, I mean, good for me. I mean, you know, sometimes you make like, oh shit, I made $300 today. You know, people, you know, so that, but I was fine with that. But having to ding somebody $10 or whatever it was, but I couldn't do that. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons is pure ego. Because like, what happens if only 6 people paid $10 to see the show when I had 150 people watching it the other day? You know, I'm like, I'm not sure my ego would could take that. So I would rather just say, you know what, if you want to just watch it, and if you dig it, great. And if you feel like bad, you know, throwing $5 my way, great. If you don't, that's okay too. I'm glad you're here. Because nobody, I guarantee you, you didn't call any of your friends and say, man, if you want to see a fucking train wreck, tune into the Plume Show today.
No, but I
Right?
I did about some other people, not yours.
Well,
Not
thank
yours.
God. But you know what I mean, though.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's important to me, and that was and that's the kind of the same thing way I am with like streaming. Like, well, I think streaming is going to just be a cash cow in years to come. It's just not quite there yet. But you know, but when people go, are you concerned about people streaming your music for no, and you're only making like a third of a penny for every stream? I'm like, I don't know, man. Like nobody ever said, hey, you got to go stream this song. It's the biggest piece of shit you've ever heard. I don't think that's the case. You know, people say you got to check out this song. People, so they'll hop on Spotify, they'll listen to the song, and then hopefully my tour dates pop up along beside the song and say, oh, look, he's playing at the park in Winnipeg on October 19th. Well, shit, we got to go. And then I'll sell him a coffee mug or something.
Will a flicker turn to a flame, or just a shot in the dark? Don't need a poet to explain what's in my heart.
Even though the pandemic stopped his promotional and touring plans short, Mike's album Lonesome Stretch of Highway received some of the best reviews and got some of the most attention of all of his albums. He's only now able to start getting out to perform these songs and sell some copies of that great album. He had a number of shows planned for this month, but many of the dates in Saskatchewan had to be postponed due to new health restrictions in that province. Luckily, he's still got a show planned for right here in Winnipeg at the newly renovated Park Theatre on October 19th. If you're in town, or even if you want to travel from out of town, I hear there's people traveling from all over the place for this thing. Tickets are available through Eventbrite, and I'll put a link to those at flywithyourshadow.com. Check Mike's website, mikeplume.com, for other shows and updates. I've got a whole lot more of my chat with Mike and a bunch of music to share on my other show, Tell the Band to Go Home, probably on the October 10th and 17th episodes. You can find and follow that show at tellthebandtogohome.com. You can find out more about the music used in this episode and find other episodes, and you can join our mailing list at flywithyourshadow.com. I'm always really glad to hear from you. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, just email me at flywithyourshadow@gmail.com. As always, this show is ad-free. It costs you absolutely nothing. If you want to support the show, please share this episode with someone who might enjoy it. Your help would be greatly appreciated. I'll be back next week with another stellar episode. I'm really excited about this one. I hope you'll join me then. I'm Jeff Robson, and I thank you for listening. I hope you've got something out of the show, and I hope you'll join me again on the next episode of Fly With Your Shadow.
Baby, hey.